Hey, lean leaders, how you doing today? This is Sam MacPherson, Leading Excellence. So we're going to do some thinking out loud today with my buddy Katie Anderson. If you've been around, you know her. She's a consultant. She's a keynote speaker. She's an author. One of my favorite books, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn. She's also the person that gives me all of these. Oh, by the
Oh,
way, Katie, I forgot to tell you, I did fill in my eyes
oh,
on this
great. That
one.
makes me so happy. You're doing
Yeah,
it all.
especially for
So
this
fun.
one right here, right? So
Uh,
yeah, so I got plenty of those. So as you know, we talked recently about both a keynote speech that I did as well as a couple of webinars for Industry Week and for Ohio State, where we talked about this concept of leadership is leadership, management is management.
mm,
And now we work in the world of operational enterprise leadership. So, sure, if you're an author or if you're on YouTube or if you're an influencer on Instagram, sometimes if you're an influencer on LinkedIn now, Lord knows there's hard to tell the difference between it, that being an influencer is being a form of a leader, but our world is more
mm,
operational leadership. And so it's interesting the feedback that I got that so many senior executives said, "Oh, no, I'm a leader. I don't have to manage." And
mm.
then on the other side, I heard senior executives says, "No, I'm a manager. I have other people that do the leading. I just give the vision."
Mm.
But from my perspective, and I know in your perspective, that the Japanese don't necessarily see it that way. And I know we've had general conversations around the concept
Mm.
of the word oso, or if you're going to modify that word in connection with another word,
Mm.
it's cho, right? Like kujo cho, plant leader, right? So, or manufacturing leader, or han cho. So when we try to translate in the United States,
Mm.
we generally have this, I'm a plant manager or I'm a foreman, I'm a supervisor. In Japan, I saw more of a unity of that
Mm.
concept that it was you were a leader and you were expected to manage. And
Mm.
I know that Toyota in your book spent quite a bit of time getting back to basics with the Compro program. So when you're running through and talking with leaders in your community, what do they think about this concept of leadership versus management? Or what's your thesis? Think
Mm.
out loud at me.
Well, great. And first, I want to say, Sam, thank you for nominating my book, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, for the Shingo
Oh,
Publication Award. So it's a real thrill that we've received that award. And so thank you for being our nominator for that. The concept of leadership and management, I'm with you. We can't separate them. When we're working with people, we are inherently needing to lead people forward. And managing is really around sort of the process and the structure side. So perhaps if you're like a project manager, maybe you're truly just managing to looking at a project,
mhm.
you're managing just all the tasks within that and to see whether or not things are getting done on a process side. But really, if you are in charge of a group of people, you need to be both managing all the tasks and the actions needed to take to achieve initiative or get results. And you also need to lead the people forward in a vision, developing them, helping them be aligned and understanding. So all the sort of the people development. It was interesting when I was talking to Mr. Isao Yoshino, the 40-year Toyota leader who's the subject of my book, about his time at Toyota. He always uses the word manager,
Mhm.
or management when he refers to something that we might consider a leader. And when I was using the word leader, oftentimes he'd say, wait, no, I wasn't a leader, because in his mind, a leader meant like the CEO or the senior most executives there. And I talked to him about how in the English language, we have been using the word leader is someone around the people development side. So growing,
Mhm.
developing people, helping them move forward. And he said, okay, I understand that leadership is more also on that people side. And as a manager, you have to do that as well. So he's like, you can call me a leader or a manager because I am both. And I think that gets to your point that we can't separate out leadership from management from the role. If you're in an organization and in charge of a functional group, a team,
Mhm.
or even the senior most leader in an organization, there's aspects of management that you own, and there's aspects of leadership that you are responsible for too.
Yeah, it just came to mind when we're thinking about that. If you think about what leaders do from a Toyota Way
Mm,
perspective, the respect for people is clearly a leadership, perspective, whereas the continuous improvement is both a leadership and management perspective,
mm,
probably stronger on the management so that you can know what to improve. But I spoke recently about when Will James was president of Toyota Motor Manufacturing Kentucky. And when he came back to TMMK, the big question was, we hear that they're going to bring Lexus to the United States. And a lot of the folks were saying, we get a chance to do that rather than plant it in a specific area in the United States. And his
oh,
big thought was, we're not ready for that, even though they had won JD Power, several JD Power first time buyer, first time quality, loyalty awards. As far as Toyota is concerned, they were very strong in the Toyota brand side. Will was trying to really say from that, we're not ready for it, is that the quality requirements for a Lexus, even compared to the best highest quality Toyota, is 300 times that of what a Camry would be,
mm,
or another brand. So as they kept kind of trying to inspire him to go to Japan and ask for the business, he said, look, if you're really interested in doing this, you got to prove it. We got to prove it to ourselves first. So little by little, they had to use the management side of things to set a plan up to continue to improve their quality and overall performance up to 300% better than what they were before. But
mm,
every time they got 50% better, 100% better, the vision was that the leadership side of the vision was, we can do this,
yeah,
but everybody's got to be serious about it. The management side was telling people where they really stood
mm,
in our performance. And then every time you achieved a new goal, if you didn't go communicate effectively, if you didn't go build relations and mutual trust, then it was easy to demoralize the team as they hit these harder standards. But yet now you're going to set a new standard in place, because
yeah,
even if you're 150% better, you're not as good as we need to be to
mm,
even go
mm,
propose this. And so that role of, where are we at? Where do we need to go? Really a lot the management side of things, finding out what are the key people and process indicators we need to achieve.
yeah,
But every time you hit it, you got to set the vision as a leader,
yeah,
and you got to communicate, and you
yes.
got to keep people engaged and inspired every time you set a new goal. And I think that's, to me, where that leader manager is one and the same in the operational enterprise world.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, building on that, as you're speaking, Sam, I'm thinking about some of the gaps that we've had in the world of continuous improvement for many, many years in operational excellence, where you have to unite both technical skills and like problem solving and managing processes and improving processes. And you need to have the social skills around influence and coaching and people development and setting vision and bringing people along. And far too often, a lot of people get excited by lean or process improvement and like really focus on, yeah, we're just going to like look at the process side and then forget like we're going to improve the process. Great, they have, but they haven't brought in the leadership side to how are we bringing in people along. So we're just managing the process but forgetting to bring the people along too. So not exactly the same as the difference between a manager and a leader, but also kind of a related challenge as well. If we can't separate these two, we have to unite them together. And if you're, operational excellence practitioner as well, you have to not just be the technical tools and process person. You also have to have the people influence skills as well to lead people forward and develop their capabilities.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
biggest thing that, from an AI perspective, if you think you're going to be replaced by a robot, is that people building mutual relations, building trust, communication, setting a vision, keeping people engaged when it's getting tough, when you're getting the challenge
Mm,
that our community expects. to your point is those things can't be separated. Yeah, if you're an individual contributor or project manager, you might have more of the management
Mm,
side than the leader side, but if you got people on your team, you still have to keep them engaged. You still got to keep
exactly.
them motivated, right?
Well, exactly. And that's even the whole concept of having maybe the value stream leader or the chief engineer at Toyota was actually someone who is both managing the development of a new product, but was also having to have the influence skills to bring people along on that vision, even though they didn't have a direct authority as well. And so it is that leadership capability to unite people together to achieve a common goal or work together. So really that visionary element is so critical as well.
The other thing from you don't have to be the CEO to cast a vision. Even and that is clearly a leadership function. Now,
Mm,
you need to be able to measure the journey to the vision, but to be able to lead, you must be able to cast a vision. And I remember Russ Scafferty, one of my earliest Toyota mentors, would say to even some of his leaders when he was still a general manager and powertrain at TMMK was go out, just stand on the floor for a while,
mm,
spend 20, 30 minutes just envisioning your area and what it's going to look like 6 months from now. And get a clear vision. Go out there, just look and just see the
mm,
future. And that's a good place, even as a supervisor, as a group leader, even
mm.
as a team leader, certainly as an
Yeah.
operational leader, to go out and just see the future of your specific area that you're responsible
Mm,
for and see how that's going to build up your people. And then, of course, to your point, you have to build the people before you can build the things, right?
right.
Seeing what the environment's going to look like in the future and then say, what do we need
Mm.
to be able to accomplish that going forward? So, and then you were going to say something else
Well,
too.
I am going to say something else, but I wanted to first build on this. There's this, I can draw it, but there's the powerful grid about talking about how the closer you are to the front line as a manager, you're going to have more like process management. There's going to be greater scope of you doing management of process. And as you get more senior in the organization, you might have more what we might be calling leadership skills, but there's still elements that you have to manage and process about what's going on in your organization. It just maybe the amount of your time isn't spent as much on the management side. It's more on the leadership and the visionary and the innovation and bringing people together, aligning on a strategy. Whereas if you're a frontline supervisor, you're really doing a lot more of the management of the daily work, but you still have some leadership elements about how you're uniting the team around that and how you're developing them. And I remember Larry Culp. I was speaking with him a few years ago on stage. He'd read my book, and we were at the AME conference. And he said one of the powerful shifts that he realized about as he was developing to be a more senior leader is that there were elements of this management and leadership. These aren't the words he used, but he said that was a really powerful image for him in thinking about what a role of what we call a leader is and how it relates to the process management and how it relates to sort of the visionary leadership as well.
Yes, that's really good. So throwing something else out there to think about from a leadership versus management perspective. Oftentimes, and I know you run into this, I tell my lean transformation clients and my lean leaders is that don't think you can wait to learn to lead
Mm,
because as soon as you implement standardized work, you got to start leading
yep.
because now you're going to get people, you're going to have to ask people to follow standardized work. You just changed the way they did things for 20 or 30 years. And now if you don't think you don't need leadership skills going into that, then you're going to be sorely wrong. So a lot of times in preparation work for standardized work is one of the earliest things that we do in a lot of cases is I do a lot of leadership training up front to
Mm,
make sure they got the fundamental leadership skills that it takes to influence people, develop people to be able to maintain that mutual trust as
yes.
well as make sure that they're following standardized work. That's pure leadership, right?
Yes, well, that's the coaching. We can't that's where you can't just have one side or the other, or you're gonna fail. And you just said they need to learn to lead, and that's exactly why I titled my book "Learning to Lead." It's you have to first start off learning what it
Mhm.
means to lead, and that includes how to manage process and improve process as well. And then you can lead to help other people have that learning mindset, the learning skills for continuous improvement and innovation in your organization as well. But first you have to learn about those basic leadership skills, and through that you can improve process and improve people.
Yeah, and oftentimes, we talk a lot about learn by doing, right?
Mm,
But a lot of times, the leadership side of that is you need to learn in order to do, then you learn by doing, and then you learn from doing. The big piece about leadership is learning from doing,
yep.
that reflection moment after you go through every iteration
Mm,
of implementing the new excellence operation system, whatever that is,
mm.
right? Usually the biggest thing is that the standard is greater than the capability or the willingness, and that's where that leadership comes in. But how do you know where to get people to get motivated to? That's where you have to give them clear goals, right? And so the goals part of that is the management, right? The gap analysis is the management piece. The
Yes.
motivating people to close the gap is the leadership thing,
Yes.
right? So,
Yep.
in your experience, both maybe as a consultant, as a leader in your own environment, what's been one of your biggest leadership challenges in having people step up to whatever the
Mm.
management challenge is?
Yeah, well, I think it's my experience for myself personally, and then with so many leaders at all levels that I work with, is really shifting from them being the one who's coming in, doing all the doing and coming up with the great ideas and the
Hmm.
solutions, or telling people what to do, and doing, and what I call break the telling habit. How do you develop the skills to hold back, and that your role isn't to be the one, the expert with all the answers? It's instead to be asking more questions, to be setting that clear expectation of the goal or the challenge we need to overcome, and then helping people, provide the support for your people to be able to learn their way forward or figure their way out there too. And we jump in too fast to kind of default to that doer mode. And that's where we're not up leveling our skills as a leader. We're falling back either into that independent contributor mode,
Hmm.
or the expert who has all the answers, and really not growing the capabilities in the organization. So I was really surprised when I had feedback over a decade ago from one of my executive coaches when I was still an internal in an organization. And like, I didn't even realize, I mean, I was coaching the executives in our organization, but I didn't even realize how ingrained my habit of jumping in with my ideas and telling people my suggestions was, and how inhibiting truly of progress that was making. So how do you, as I call like leading to learn, how do leaders set the direction? So that's about the process, and so that we can manage the process, but then to provide support to their team members and grow their team members. And that's like some more of that, those leadership capabilities. And then, as you said, Sam, develop yourself. How are you looking at improving yourself at all times? Because those are not easy things to always be doing. And so what are your own gaps in personal improvement for being a more effective both manager and effective leader?
Yes, that brings in something just thinking out loud at you. Oftentimes, even in some of the training that I do, and my leadership training with my leaders, is okay, what's this person's readiness level to take on
Mm,
this specific task? How ready are they? And then, of course, being a good situational lean leader, how do we match that style? But one of the things that I reflected on after years of doing this was the homework that the leader really needs to do ahead of that analysis, that diagnosis of the team member and the challenge you're about to give them. You need to ask yourself, am I ready to lead? Am I ready to lead? What's
mm,
my level of readiness to lead this new level of challenge that I'm about to give one of my team members to
mm,
help develop them to a different level? So I think sometimes the pre-step to leading someone to develop them to that next level of
yep.
readiness is to say, am I ready to lead that next level of development? Do I truly know what I need to know in order to guide this
Yep.
person to go through a learning cycle that allows them to be a stronger, more ready contributor or leader? But then what's my role? What do
Mm,
I need to do as a leader to guide them? I don't think we do enough self diagnosis, to
no.
your point, before we start to lead somebody. Are we ready to lead when they reach that next level of readiness to say, we know what we need to do? What are our skills going to need to be?
Yep. And we don't do a very good job, at least in my experience, in organizations in helping leaders develop those skills, right? And so we focus much more on that, how are we managing or solving problems, but not as much on giving feedback and sort of standing like the coaching about how you're coaching and developing your team as well. And that is so critical. It's like the second coach role, like how are we developing as leaders and people developers, not just how are we getting better at solving problems or looking at the management of a process. Both are very important. And then this makes me think about, Sam, you mentioned the ConPro program, which was
Mhm.
a leadership development program, or actually a management development program that Toyota put forward in the late 1970s, early 1980s, when they realized that they had this huge quality challenge. They had quality issues across all of their cars, and they realized that the root cause analysis was that the management capabilities, but really what we're calling some of the leadership capabilities, had
Mhm.
eroded over some generational changeover, and they needed to really refocus on those skills around aligning on cross-functional alignment, so not working in silos. How are they communicating? How are they communicating and sharing the story about a problem, not actually just doing the problem, solving the problem themselves? And how are they developing their team members at the same time? And it was through this process that A3, the size of the paper, but the format we're now familiar with, problem solving and strategy development, became utilized as the tool for not just like communicating a problem or issue, but as a process for people development or leadership development. And they use this as a way to reinforce those more leadership capabilities that are often missing for our managers as well.
Yeah. Well, since I got you on the line on this thing anyway, okay, now the big three, right? So,
Ah,
what's Katie Anderson's big three leadership skills every leader has to
ooh,
have and should start developing on? So, give us the big three from Katie Anderson's point of view on soft skills or leadership skills.
oh my gosh. Well, I developed this model that has 8 competencies
Hmm.
around it called the Katalyst Model with a K,
Hmm.
Katalyst. Actually, you
Yeah,
can
I saw
download it
that
on
on
my website.
your
Yeah. So
website. Yeah.
it's all about how you become someone who really accelerates the rate of learning as a source for organizational progress or change. And I believe all of these are so important, but there are a few that I want to call out. One is being a knowledgeable business expert. In this, I see a challenge a lot of, like, especially lean and continuous improvement practitioners, that we're so excited about doing lean and doing the
Hmm.
projects and the process, that we're speaking in sort of with lingo that doesn't connect with the executives or the leaders in your organization. So we need to really understand the real business drivers, what are the results that the organization needs to achieve, and then speak in a language that connects with people about how we're going to improve process to achieve those results, rather than just leaving with the tools like, oh, let's do a Kamishibai board, or let's do all these fun, crazy things. Let's do a process mapping, value stream analysis. And people are like, what are you talking about? But let's understand the steps in the process so that we're really able to reduce variation. We're going to increase efficiency and people engagement. So how are we using the language of business to connect the management and the leadership sides? Certainly being an astute political navigator is so
Ooh.
important. And this is
I
really
think you're
about
the first person that's brought out the need for being able to navigate the human terrain, as we like to
oh
say,
my God,
the political nature of what it means to advance in the organization in order
yes.
to influence, right?
Politics has a bad rap. There's a lot of politics out in our world and our environment, and we see it as this like divisive thing. But actually, the real, like, the good side of politics is how are we uniting different perspectives and understanding how we're getting the ideas from different people together to build coalitions so that we can advance visions and support decision making. And this is so important too. It's like knowing where the real power in organizations lie. Is it someone who has a title, or there's someone maybe who has the ear of the decision maker or the official decision maker, but they're sort of the unofficial person who's really going to have influence? How are we doing like that nemawashi, the tilling of the
Oh,
soil?
key word. Yeah, I was getting
Yeah,
ready to bring that up
yeah,
because
till the
because
soil
till the
to like,
soil, yeah.
yeah,
But politically,
you
the
have to,
kanji, that circular kanji in the middle of Imawashi, right,
yes,
is really about circulating the idea for support politically, right?
Yes.
Doing the behind the scenes,
Yes.
building mutual trust, getting connection, get support.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
It
getting
was a political tool for a long time from that terminology, right?
Yes, it's like, how do we get all the different perspectives so that people can see their part in a proposal that's brought forward? And also, so you're not like jumping into a meeting cold, but you've really done the pre-work, which is that being the astute political navigator. So important if you're really wanting to be an influential and transformational change leader and not just a manager or, continuous improvement practitioner. And along with that, I would say being a yes-minded persuader. So how are not we not just like, this is the way we have to do it and it's my way or the highway, or I'm so excited in my enthusiasm about my ideas, but it's really about how are you influencing and persuading others to adopt a new way of thinking and working. And so asking more questions and helping bring them along, using data and evidence in a storytelling format that really connects on the emotional level, that so we're not just presenting data, but really connecting to the real reasons why, and connecting in ways that's actually going to resonate with the person that you're communicating with. And that was actually something Mr. Yoshino highlights in my book, that a key skill that he had to learn was to adapt your style to the person you're working with. If they're a more analytical person or a little more quiet, how do you slow down or maybe share data first? Or if they're more an effusive people person, how do you ask about their family and get that sort of relational side first? And that's how we help be more focused on the yes and bringing people along. And those are all connected, being a yes-minded persuader and how you're being an astute political navigator, and then how you're connecting the work of continuous improvement to the business outcomes that are needed so that you're really getting that buy-in and bringing people along as well. And there's so many more too, like how effective are you as a coach or facilitating or seeing things from a system level. But those are some of the ones that I see as big gaps in a lot of the work I do with clients, either from operational leaders and managers or from the internal continuous improvement lean teams.
Okay, now if you've been around and you know anything about me, I always have this question on Fridays. Hey, lean leaders, what's your Monday morning plan? Right.
Mm,
And that's one of the scariest things I guess I ask my clients. Okay, we've been together for a week. What's your Monday morning plan? So give me give me a leadership Monday morning plan. What's one thing
mm.
our leaders listening to us can do on Monday to show stronger leadership that it doesn't take rocket science, kind of Elon Musk thinking to be able to do. So, what's the one Katie Anderson thing leaders need to do on
Yeah.
Monday
Yeah.
to lead better?
My number one is watch the quality of your questions and be aware, are you really asking or advocating for your ideas in disguise? And these are those closed-ended questions, or the questions like, have you thought of doing this? Or how about that? Where you're really suggesting your idea with a question mark on it. It has the same impact as when we're just telling and suggesting all the time. Two
Mm-hmm.
challenges with this. One is, how do you feel when people give all your suggestions? Like, we create disengagement actually. So you might get compliance with your action, but you're not getting really true buy-in and working together. And then second is you're unknowingly burdening yourself with the responsibility of now
Mm.
doing all that doing. Because when you tell someone your ideas, you're actually taking away the responsibility for them to think and contribute as well. So number one, and this is about how you can break the telling habit, is pay attention to the quality of your questions. Are you really asking open-ended questions to invite the thinking of others? And the corollary of that is sit in silence and give people space to answer. Don't just ask a question and move on. So
Yeah.
if those are two simple shifts that you can make, is ask an open question and give some space for someone to answer, count to 10. And you will be amazed at how that starts to invite more thinking and more contributions and more engagement in your organization.
Awesome. I mean, if we don't give our leaders something to do on Monday morning that they can practice, then they're not going to be a better leader,
Yep.
right? So I appreciate
Yep.
these nuggets, these Katie Anderson nuggets that you're sharing with us today.
Yeah. Thanks,
Um,
Sam. And for your listeners who want, like, I have some more tips on that. You can download a resource on my website, kbjanderson.com/telling habit, or kbjanderson.com/catalyst with a K, and, dive in and do some self-assessments and get some tips on all of those elements.
Excellent. And we'll share that in the comments as well. So everybody has a link and can click on that link, go straight to your site for the Katalyst assessment and so forth. So last question, of course, I got to ask you, what's going on in the Katie world and what big things you got coming up?
Yeah, well, I'm about to hit at the time of this recording the 1 year anniversary of my podcast's launch, Chain of Learning. So go head over there and listen in to Chain of Learning if you haven't already. We dive into a lot of these concepts on a deeper level. And I'm going back to Japan. I'm about to lead my 6th cohort of leaders going to
Awesome.
Japan to learn about just what we're talking about here, not just the tools, but the people side, the human side. How do you really lead to create a culture of continuous learning and of engagement? And I have another trip coming up in 2025. So I'm really excited. I love going back to Japan where I lived for 2 years. And Mr. Yoshino is going to spend the whole week with us. So
Oh,
that's,
awesome.
he's
Great
almost
learning.
81. Yeah, he's almost 81. So this is like, time's a ticking. Now's the time and a great opportunity. So those are two of the big things coming up for me. But how about you, Sam? What's coming
Well,
up in the world of Sam?
currently working on a book on Obeya, leading and managing the Obeya, the Toyota way.
Well, come to Japan and be even more, have more of that nemawashi, that soil tilled. So when
Mhm.
you're in Japan, you're seeing things even on a deeper level. The learning continues in so many different ways.
I'm looking forward to our next Thinking Out Loud session
Yeah.
together. We'll have to think about something we hadn't thought of and just carry on this
Yeah.
conversation. But Katie, thank you for everything that you've done for our community and all the learning and the knowledge that you've shared with us. And I look forward to our next conversation together.
Thanks, Sam. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. And thank you again for all the support you've given to me with my book and so much more. So I'm looking forward to hearing people's reflections from this podcast and their thinking on the concept of leadership and management and how they're connected or not.
Yep. Well, we're going to say so long for now and talking to some of the guests we got coming up. Got Dr. Paul Zach's going to be talking to us about leadership and the art of immersion, using cognitive science to
Mm,
improve your capabilities as a leader. And then, of course, my friend Garmine Gallo is going to talk to us about how to
great.
do better communications and some of the lessons learned from his recent book, The Bezos Blueprint. So looking forward to talking to you guys again. Hey, lean leaders. All right, bye.